Okay, so welcome to the Hearth. Um, this is one of our conversations with myself and Eileen Sendrey, Alison Greene-Barton, and Kristin Sipley. And uh, tonight or today, depends on when you're listening, we want to talk about being human and the work that we do in the pre and perinatal somatic space. And we want to start by just recognizing that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, a physical experience. And our work is fairly unique in that it seeks to welcome those amazing human spiritual qualities that are embodied in us, to recognize them and to allow them to emerge. Um, and there's no greater place or no more important place than at birth or prenatal. And just to allow families to be at that threshold moment that brings many people to tears or to great expansion. It's at a pretty amazing moment if it's optimal. And we know most births are not optimal. Most people's lives have some layer that happens. And I think it's certainly part of our work to have it be integrated right away so that people don't have to carry their burdens of what happened to them all their lives. But also, it doesn't mean that if you do have a start that's challenging, that in the present, as an adult, you can you can relieve those layers of challenge and feel that those essences once again that come from that very early time that are really amazing. So we just thought we'd have a conversation about our work and how it does welcome that human essence, whether you're a baby or a birthing family or an adult, um, that our work has this quality of recognizing that we are spiritual beings from the start. Like John Chitty taught us that the best way to welcome a baby is to recognize them and say, I know who you are, and you're a unit of consciousness, and you've come here to Earth. Welcome. I come from there too, so I really want to welcome you. And I know why you're here. You know, you're here to have an experience, to gain wisdom, or to be able to fulfill your consciousness. And that's one of the things I love about our work, is that it acknowledges this in people. So I'll stop there, see if somebody wants to pick up the thread.
I, I can go. Um, as we were preparing for this conversation, we were talking about birth and death. And I am always very honored and pleased when I get invited to either a birth or somebody's death process. Because as I was saying to you all earlier, is that those are time when there's no personality and you know people are there really in essence, all of our trappings, all of our personality aspects. I mean, they can be there to a little bit, but it's a very kind of raw, laid bare kind of experience where we really get to experience the essence of somebody and the essence of ourselves. Um, and it's kind of like the boundary between spirit and body is very the curtain is very thin at birth and death. And Yeah, for me, as someone who is, I just love exploring essence. I find that at those moments, you know, that whoever is present there has the opportunity to really experience that at those transition points.
I can go. I'm I'm sitting with the feeling of sacredness, of the beauty of being human. Although these days you hear so much about people's suffering and overwhelm, but in the experience of being present with a birth and being present with a death, I feel we're reminded of how sacred and beautiful this experience is too in its entirety. That it's a very short period of time that we're here in a body. And do we really embody with the opportunity of being here? Or do we resist it and push it away? And what I love about this work is that feeling of resistance and contraction where we're unconsciously resisting life. And that in this work, we titrate into each one of these places, and that resistance becomes a door that we open to this beauty, this spaciousness inside of us, what we referred to last time as the blueprint. I love that we can get back to this sense of beauty. I used to describe Ray Castellino as my teacher of human. I used to feel in my trauma, I would be sitting there in this, like just this feeling of, I don't get it. I don't get what it means to be human or to be here. And I would ask him questions that I wouldn't dream of asking anybody else, like questions that are obvious. But Ray used to always say over and over again, it's very important to state the obvious, because what's obvious to one person is not obvious to another. So I felt this permission to ask like these questions I would kind of be very horrified to ask anybody else. And he would come in with this sweet, fatherly, let me teach you about human. And he would give me very detailed, practical little things to do in experiences of overwhelm or just that feeling of, what do I do here? How do I make the transition from that frozen place that's in shock and disbelief about human to actually engaging in human as a valuable experience? And he would just make these very simple little statements and speak to the little one inside of me. And it's as if he knew exactly what to say. And it would open up this feeling of, okay, I can do that. I can do that. And it would be my step into embracing human. I mean, I don't know if I'm communicating it well enough, but it was such a gift because I felt like he held in his knowing and in his consciousness that place of presence where he could welcome the humanity in anyone. And I learned a lot from that.
That's so beautiful, Alison.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm really just sitting with what has been shared already, and I think I'm sitting with how you started, Kate, and there's the phrasing of recognizing we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And in listening to you, Alison, I feel as if Ray always had that in his awareness as he was sitting with people. There's something about, how do we navigate this physical realm in a different way than our spiritual being actually knows? And I was sitting with what you were also saying, Eileen, of how it's the thinnest in the earliest parts, and whether you talk about birth, prior to birth, and shortly after, and then the journey of death. I think early on, the immature body that we come into, it doesn't have the development and the maturity to navigate some things in a way that we learn over time. And similar, as we go into the death experience, we lose some of that control or ways to manage or let go of being able to, whether it's because it's physically or because of age and wisdom or other things. I think those veils are thinner then, and we get to see more the essence, the essential nature of us, and maybe the spiritual being and the blueprint that has been there all along. And how do we, and one thing I love about this work is how do we facilitate that, encourage it, invite it, allow that to show through in our day-to-day life, in the life in between the birth and death during the experience. And it really reminds me of the clients I've sat with, friends and family I've sat with in those places of just allowing what's there to be there. And when there's space for the realness of the human experience, what we tap into after that is what's more essential underneath, that's more pure and true, I think is the word that I'd say. And I think it's beautiful, what you're referring to, Alison, also the challenges, but also the joys are windows to touching that's underneath all the history and all the patterns and structures we create to navigate certain situations given what resources we have at the time.
Oh, thank you, Kristin. I feel like the babies are the closest, the tissue of their bodies and their lives and their brains, their humanness is closest to the spirit. And I remember listening to Anna Chitty talk about how they're so fresh, they're impressionable, and their tissue, their body is so open and carrying those essential qualities, like to be like coming into form. Like I remember the questions we ask, like, did you choose a human life? Did you want to come? And for me, I wanted to come. Oh yeah, I was so ready. I jumped in feet first, which is, a part of my birth pattern as a footling breech. But I mean, to be able to have a human body, to have the experiences on planet Earth, the sensuality of it. And then as we are able to be more mature at the end of life, to really begin to savor these things about our lives and all the spiritual teachings can make much more sense. But having felt these essential qualities in myself while I've been working on, healing my earliest layers of experience, I mean, they are really, they take my breath away, some of them, especially the quality of love, and to feel that ecstasy of it. And I'm sure our therapy is not the only therapy that allows people to feel these amazing states. And I'm also really appreciating what you said, Allison, about this is how you human. If someone could have just said to those of us who experience this extreme dysregulation of our ancestors and our parents and our family systems, no, this is how you human. I think it would be much more peaceful life on planet Earth, less suffering, and just a deep appreciation of our beauty. And as we were, talking about this conversation, I was sharing that I have indigenous midwives as in my life, and they share that in some of their traditions, they see a baby as calling down the stars. We call down the stars into our human form, and there's something really also so beautiful about allowing that star to go back into where the stars are. And just how can we bring this consciousness to the preciousness of our lives? Why is it that we get at the end of our life and we deeply appreciate being human? Can we not do that every day? Can we do it more often? Can we come into contact with the truth of us? And our work integrates the challenges, the resistances. I know there are spiritual teachings that lead us here, but the actual therapies of helping people in their body, that different kind of listening is what you said it was, Eileen. This listening deeply, appreciating, and having presence to have people feel it in themselves. That's the beauty of what we do.
As you bring up that different kind of listening, Kate, I had a friend who he and I had a very subtle relationship. We always really were able to speak without words and understand each other without words. And he lived on the East Coast. I live on the West Coast. And one day it was when I was a body worker, I suddenly started to feel these incredible feelings of love and affection and really feeling his essence. And when I came out of the session, I got a call from a mutual friend who said he had unexpectedly died that morning. He was found sitting, smiling in his hot tub. And I realized that, he and I had always been able to communicate without words. And there was something about that I realized that here's somebody who had passed unexpectedly. And just like we work with babies who are born very fast, that may not even know that they were born in our work, because I was already studying this work, I realized oh, there might be somebody here who died so unexpectedly that he may need support in integration. And so for many days, I just held him and held his essence and supported him in integrating. Of course, that's how I held it. I feel like there's a mystery of life, but I just held the intention to support him in integrating the ending, which came so suddenly and surprisingly. And so there's something about these edges of life that we're talking about, and both our essence and form that we come into for a period of time. But then as we leave the body, there's some kind of process that's very mysterious to me. But then there's also still the way that we can support with different parts of the sequence, like, for example, integration, which so many of us need support with because it's not something that is always so focused on in our culture. So that was a big gift to me to understand something about the human essence. Yeah, I'll stop there.
I appreciate what you're saying, Eileen. And it reminds me of an experience I had with my husband as he was dying. I remember I had this strong feeling that he was going to die the next day, and there was no reason for it. Even the hospice nurses said, "Oh, it's weeks away." But something in me knew because of how connected we were. And I had this kind of impulse to sit with him all night. And I felt as if I was giving him an energy cranial sacral session the whole night long. I was sitting with him with where his energy was in the blueprint and where he was open and free. And then there would be this contraction. And he couldn't speak to me in words, but I would hang out in that contraction with him and just start to talk. I would start to, but I wasn't talking in words. I was talking in my mind to him. Sometimes I'd speak out loud, but mostly it was just sharing what I was feeling in that energy and holding it with love and encouraging him like I would in a session. It was just like encouraging him with the blueprint and the essence to start to relax and open there. And it would be as if together we were kind of helping him unfold or unweave what was woven too tightly and stretch it. And then there would be this release. And then we'd hang out in the open space again until we got to another place like that. And it was like that all night long. And I also felt this presence of kind of like spiritual presence around us, encouraging me to keep doing this with him. And every time we'd hit to one of these contractions or these places of tightness in his energy, I would just say to him, it's okay to let go here. It's okay to be unfinished here. It's okay to not be perfect. And I would just keep repeating these things to him that I love him anyways. And I forgive you for whatever this is. There's no need to hold on to this anymore. This is the time to let go. And it was so guided to support him. And then by the next day, he was able to let go and die. And it was so beautiful of like an energy dance that we were doing together and being able to just name where the contractions were and to help him forgive himself by me forgiving whatever was there. And it reminded me of the work that we do with babies, where you feel where the energy's open and then you feel where the energy's contracted and you make contact with the contraction and name it and say, you're so sorry for this place and thank you for showing this to me. And I felt like I was doing that with him all night until he could let go. It was very beautiful.
Oh, another beautiful story. Mm. I just love how I don't know, the topic of being human on all that takes. And there is something that having a human body actually brings. It gives us access to so much here in the physical realm. And there's the challenge and the difficulty of uh, maybe some restriction in comparison to something that is more flowy or available. But I think that's part of being human. I know one of the biggest things for me that really impacted me was after one of the hardest weeks I had ever had. And I sat with myself of being, how do I navigate this again in another situation like it? And as I really meditated and sat with it for a few days, I think I really came to that life is messy. And I could feel how much I was metaphorically trying to stay out of the mess, staying out of the mud. And it brought me back to when I played soccer. Like, I didn't like slide tackles. I tried to stay up on my feet, out of the mud. I didn't mind getting muddy, but there was something that I could feel in my life at that time of, okay, I need to stop trying to stay out of the mud and let myself get down and dirty and messy and start playing in it. In a lot of our conversation, it's not that the blueprint or life is easy or that it should be, that there are these challenges as well as the pleasures. And how do we give ourselves permission for that to be there and know underneath it there's something true and essential that's supporting the whole flow of our life and beingness.
Well, thank you, Kristin, Allison, and Eileen. I feel like this is to be continued, dot, 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 as John Chitty would say. And we hope that those of you who listen will come to our conversation about being human, life and death and birth. And yeah, I think there's a lot more that we would like to say and explore. But what I've heard is there's this beauty that's here, but there's also mud and dirt and resistance that's here, and all that's part of being human. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.